Hunters in rural Georgia thought they were tracking deer. Instead, they walked into a nightmare. Human remains scattered across miles of timberland, sparking one of the most disturbing murder cases the state had ever seen. On December 2, 2022, hunters in the Portal Hunting Club area near Riceboro, Georgia, made a discovery that would launch a complex homicide investigation. While tracking their dogs in the woodland, they came across the torso of an adult white female. The area stretched across Liberty, McIntosh, and Long counties, an expanse of timberland used by loggers and hunters, where dense vegetation made searches difficult. Over the following days, investigators recovered more remains scattered within a 3-mile radius. A right leg was located by one hunter, a left leg by a dog team, and on December 7th, a buried head was uncovered near a tree where the roots had been disturbed. This grisly recovery process required careful coordination as authorities combed through logging roads and woodland terrain. Near the original torso site, investigators found several items that hinted at transport and concealment. A large black tote lay upside down, with a second gray tote nearby. A red-handled Milwaukee utility knife was recovered along with numerous disinfectant wipes. Both containers later tested positive for human blood, though the knife itself showed no usable DNA. Despite decomposition and dismemberment, a forensic entomologist estimated time of death to late November 2022, only days before the discovery. The medical examiner confirmed the woman had suffered multiple blunt force, head injuries, and defensive wounds. Experts believed power tools were likely used in dismemberment. From the beginning, authorities knew they were confronting a brutal and deliberate killing. For months after the discovery of remains in the Georgia timberlands, the victim's identity remained a mystery. Early fingerprint checks, DNA comparisons, and attempts to trace a dental implant had failed to produce results. The breakthrough finally came nearly 6 months later when investigators turned to genealogical research. By building family trees and narrowing possible matches, they located potential relatives. A maternal DNA sample provided confirmation. The victim was 40-year-old Mindi Mebane Kassotis. Mindi was the eldest of 3 children in a close-knit family. She was deeply connected to her parents, Betsy and Frank III, and her brothers, Frank IV and Matthew. Relatives remembered her as bright, curious, and ambitious. She earned a master's degree in public service and international affairs, building on earlier work as a legal secretary before moving into the nonprofit sector. Friends and family emphasized her commitment to helping others, describing her as generous and community-minded. In the autumn of 2016, Mindi married Nicholas Kassotis, a decorated Navy veteran and former judge advocate general prosecutor who had served 2 tours in Iraq and later worked at the Pentagon. Following their marriage, the couple spent extended time living with Mindi's family, first with her brother Frank and his wife, then with her parents in a Savannah bungalow. These arrangements underscored the strong ties Mindi maintained with her family. When investigators confirmed her identity in May 2023, they also learned that Mindi had never been reported missing. Instead, relatives testified that Nicholas had told them a very different story about her fate, setting the stage for growing contradictions between his account and the mounting forensic evidence. After Mindi's remains were identified, investigators turned to Nicholas Kassotis' version of events. To her family, Nicholas claimed that Mindi had died in early December 2022 while in a hospital. He said she had been monitored for blood pressure issues for 3 days, but that he did not visit because of safety concerns. When asked, he could not recall the hospital's name or location in Savannah. Nicholas stated that when he eventually went to check on her, staff informed him that she had died suddenly. According to his account, he was prevented from seeing her body. He further explained that an autopsy was planned, but he later received word that Mindi had been mistakenly cremated. Nicholas described meeting an unidentified man in Montgomery, Alabama, the next day. He said he paid $5,000 in cash for the cremation and was given what he believed were her ashes. In testimony, Mindi's family recalled Nicholas telling them simply that she was not coming home. They emphasized that no service or burial ever followed, and no official paperwork was provided. At every stage of questioning, Nicholas failed to produce a death certificate, medical records, or the names of any doctors or staff involved. His narrative of a sudden hospital death and unexpected cremation stood in sharp contrast to forensic findings in the Georgia woodlands, where evidence told a very different story about Mindy's final hours. Investigators pieced together surveillance, receipts, and tracking data to examine Nicholas Kassotis' movements during the critical period. A water pump station camera near the Portal Hunting Club in Liberty County captured a 2022 Ford Explorer of the same make and model as his, driving past around noon on November 29, 2022, and returning shortly after. GPS records placed the vehicle in the wooded area for roughly 2 hours, aligning with sites where Mindy's remains were later discovered. When questioned, Nicholas admitted being in the area, but provided a lengthy explanation. He claimed he had been directed by a security team to deliver containers to a designated location, insisting the totes he carried contained belongings, not evidence of a crime. Purchase records told a different story. On November 29th, Nicholas bought a red-handled Milwaukee utility knife from a Home Depot. Earlier, he had purchased a shovel. Investigators also discovered he had acquired a 7-piece deer processing kit from a Bass Pro shop. Forensic experts later testified that the set could not be excluded as consistent with tools used in the dismemberment. 2 incidents after Mindy's death raised further suspicion. Nicholas reported that a backpack containing 2 laptops and a phone had been stolen, eliminating possible digital evidence. Days later, he claimed his Ford Explorer caught fire, destroying both the GPS device and an $800,000 to $860,000 cashier's check he said was intended for a home purchase. By compiling movement data, itemized purchases, and his implausible explanations, investigators linked Nicholas directly to the woodland route, the equipment recovered, and the timeline of Mindy's remains being dispersed across the Georgia timberlands. Attention soon turned to a short-term Airbnb in Savannah, where Mindy spent her final days. Forensic investigators searched the property and applied luminol. The chemical revealed distinct reactions on the floor and faint traces along nearby walls, indicating areas that had been cleaned. These findings suggested that blood had once been present but had been deliberately removed. The most significant discovery was a futon positioned in the rental. A large stain was visible to the naked eye, and further testing confirmed that the blood had soaked through both the fabric and into the mattress beneath. Laboratory analysis established a conclusive DNA match to Mindi Kassotis. Experts testified that, given the stain's location and the way it penetrated the mattress, Mindy was likely seated at the time she received the fatal head wounds. This aligned with the medical examiner's determination that she suffered multiple traumatic blows, along with defensive injuries. The Airbnb evidence connected directly to other items recovered in the timberlands. 2 large totes found near Mindy's torso contained human blood residue. More than a dozen disinfectant wipes were scattered across the recovery site, showing someone had attempted to sanitize tools and surfaces. While forensic specialists concluded that power tools were most likely used in the dismemberment, they clarified that the Milwaukee utility knife recovered was not a weapon or cutting instrument in the crime. Together, the Airbnb blood findings, tote residue, and wiped-down items presented a consistent forensic picture that contradicted Nicholas's hospital death account and instead pointed to a violent assault followed by dismemberment and concealment. Nicholas Kassotis explained to investigators that in 2017, he and Mindy began receiving threats, experiencing vandalism, and facing unexplained bank withdrawals. According to him, these events brought a man into their lives who identified himself as Jim McIntyre. Nicholas initially believed McIntyre was an FBI agent who operated with a security team. He claimed McIntyre directed nearly every aspect of their lives, requiring frequent moves and strict secrecy to avoid danger. Testimony later revealed that the couple relocated more than 50 times in a matter of years, often staying in temporary rentals, and that Mindy became increasingly isolated. Mindy's mother testified that this climate of fear shaped her daughter's existence, leaving her unwilling to work and apprehensive about leaving home. Nicholas said that in later years he began to doubt McIntyre's true identity. He claimed to learn McIntyre was not with the FBI, but rather a majority investor in Apis Limited, a company tied to Nicholas's supposed professional projects and stock-based wealth. After Mindi's death in late 2022, Nicholas left her parents' home. They later received emails from a so-called security team informing them that Nicholas had been in a serious car accident and, weeks later, that he had died. By May 2023, when familial DNA confirmed Mindi's remains, Nicholas was located and arrested. By then, he had legally changed his name to Nicholas James Stark and remarried. Court proceedings uncovered earlier financial and personal history involving Nicholas Kassotis. During a prior marriage to Heather, a divorce decree ordered him to pay a $1.5 million settlement. At the time, Nicholas testified he possessed a fortune of $32 million, allegedly earned through top-secret software work for Apis Limited. He claimed payment had been made in stock options held in a trust overseen by Jim McIntyre. Heather testified she never received the settlement. When she attempted to enforce the judgment, she encountered falsified bank statements that suggested Nicholas held millions at Bank of America. The institution confirmed the documents were fraudulent, and Heather ultimately recovered nothing. Meanwhile, investigators traced Nicholas's personal life in the months surrounding Mindi's death. In September 2022, he began private online correspondence with writer and producer Samantha. They bonded over shared creative interests, and Nicholas represented himself as a widower. After Mindi's death, Nicholas formally changed his legal name to Nicholas James Stark. He and Samantha married in April 2023 and moved to Pennsylvania. In testimony, she stated that he told her Mindi had died in 2020, omitting the truth that Mindi had only recently been killed. Samantha provided further evidence of deception: a Georgia driver's license altered with a Stark surname before the legal change, and an employment letter bearing the name Apis Limited. She testified that Nicholas wished to start a family quickly, but that she annulled the marriage after learning the truth during his arrest. Medical examiners determined that Mindi Mebane Kassotis died by homicidal violence. Her body showed multiple head wounds and defensive injuries, and forensic experts concluded that dismemberment was most likely carried out using power tools. Throughout the investigation and at trial, Nicholas maintained that Mindi had been pregnant near term. Members of Mindi's family also believed she was expecting, as she had openly shared that belief. The autopsy results, however, revealed that she was not pregnant at the time of death. Prosecutors argued that this contradiction was central to the case. They contended Nicholas strongly desired children and believed his wife was carrying a child. According to the state, learning that Mindi was not pregnant triggered anger, with abdominal wounds and the burial of her head presented as actions consistent with rage and concealment. Prosecutors tied physical and digital evidence directly to Nicholas. Vehicle tracking data placed him near multiple recovery sites. Purchases from Home Depot, including a red-handled Milwaukee utility knife and an earlier shovel, aligned with items linked to the crime. A 7-piece deer processing kit from Base Pro Shops, purchased by Nicholas, could not be excluded as a type of tool used. Most significantly, blood evidence from the Savannah Airbnb, including the futon stain matched to Mindi's DNA, directly contradicted Nicholas's hospital death narrative. Nicholas denied killing or dismembering his wife, attributing movements, purchases, and behaviors to instructions from Jim McIntyre's security team. In August 2025, Nicholas Kassotis stood trial in Georgia, facing 12 charges, including malice murder and felony murder. Prosecutors built their case on the cumulative weight of forensic and digital evidence. They emphasized blood in the Savannah Airbnb, confirmed as Mindi's DNA, large totes containing human blood, purchase records for cutting tools, and GPS data aligning with recovery sites. The implausibility of Nicholas's hospital death story, lacking documentation or witnesses, was highlighted as a deliberate deception. On the stand, Nicholas repeated his account of years living under threats orchestrated by Jim McIntyre. He described vandalism, financial intrusions, and constant moves under a security team's instructions. He said orders to pack totes, turn off his phone, and deliver containers explained his movements in the timberlands. He also cited a backpack theft of electronics and a vehicle fire that destroyed evidence, including a GPS device and a cashier's check. Cross-examination focused on his background as a Navy JAG prosecutor. Prosecutors pressed how someone legally trained could fail to verify McIntyre's identity, obtain basic medical records, or request a death certificate. Betsy Mebane testified about Mindy's daily fear and the moment Nicholas told them she was not coming home. Heather, his ex-wife, described the unpaid $1.5 million settlement and the unsupported $32 million wealth claim. Samantha, his third wife, testified about false documents, lies about Mindy's death, and deception regarding his past. The defense countered that both Nicholas and Mindy genuinely believed they were in danger, and their actions only made sense in that context. The prosecution maintained Nicholas fabricated stories to mask calculated violence. After roughly 1 hour of deliberation, the jury returned guilty verdicts on all 12 counts, including malice murder and felony murder. Judge Paul Rose described the crime as heinous, noting Nicholas had spun a web of lies built around the fabricated figure of Jim McIntyre. He reminded the court that Mindi Mebane Kassotis had been remembered as vibrant, smart, and beautiful, with her hopes dashed in an instant. The judge imposed the maximum penalty, life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 25 years. Nicholas made no statement at sentencing. Family members delivered powerful remarks. Megan Mebane condemned Nicholas as a pathological liar with no remorse, saying he had permanently damaged her trust in others. She urged the court to ensure he would never leave prison. Morgan Paddock described how Nicholas had kept Mindy isolated and fearful, adding that the conviction could not bring her back, but would prevent him from harming anyone else. Nicholas's parents, however, defended him, insisting the jury got this wrong and portraying their son as calm and gentle. Their plea contrasted sharply with the evidence presented and the testimonies of Mindy's loved ones. This conclusion reflects the long arc from unidentified remains to a guilty verdict. Though the trial brought legal closure, family and community members emphasized that Mindy was far more than her tragic end, ensuring her memory continues beyond the case's outcome.